dry season in Sudan brought with it renewed fighting in the country's long-running civil war. These rebel troops of the Sudan People's Liberation Army are feeling confident after taking their military campaign northwards into the government strongholds. They demand a united Sudan and an end to Islamic law. The fighting has displaced hundreds of thousands of people. With little food or water, their battle is for survival. The rebel leader, John Garang, accepts that years of war have achieved little so far.
The point is that in the Sudan, what is required is fundamental change. The old Sudan that we know, that is based on sectarianism, whether racial, religious, family, and so on, has cost us 23 years of war in 33 years of independence.
In all, some 3 million people are estimated to have been made homeless by the conflict. 250,000 Sudanese died last year from famine and disease. Vincent O'Reilly of the UN's Operation Lifeline fears another tragedy is approaching.
Absolutely, we are worried about the outbreak of war because the victims of conflict are civilians by and large, and particularly women and children, the society's most vulnerable.
In theory, at least, these children shouldn't be threatened by starvation. Sudan's fertile south could produce plenty of food. However, successive Khartoum governments have failed to invest in the region. To the southerners, the final threat of domination by the Arab North was the imposition of Islamic law on their predominantly Christian community in 1983. Out of this perceived threat grew the rebel campaign. John Garang was a member of the regular army. He left and formed the SPLA to fight for a secular Sudan.
It is really naive for a sitting government in Khartoum to say that the SPLA is of no consequence. This flies in the face of reality. The reality is that there is a civil war in the country. The SPLM is occupying most of southern Sudan.
The rebel forces are reported to control the area to the east of the Nile and to the south of the Sobat rivers. They effectively administer all areas extending to the western borders, and each day they've been moving northwards towards the capital Khartoum. The government troops of General al-Bashir are still besieged in the southern towns of Juba, Wau and Malakal. Military successes bring problems, though. Every garrison gained by the rebels presents another administrative headache. That's against a background of a wrecked economy. The SPLA admits that there's a gap between what it would like to do in its relief and reconstruction program and what it will be able to achieve in terms of resources. Reversing years of economic decline will be no easy task. Resources are in short supply for the people of southern Sudan. Most of the sick in this hospital lie on sacks in the dirt, awaiting attention. This woman will die within hours for lack of basic treatment. Many people injured in the fighting walk hundreds of miles to be seen by the hospital's only doctor. Tuberculosis is a widespread killer. The most experienced nurse on the surgical ward is an 11-year-old boy. He's had no formal education during the 6 years of civil war.
7 minus 4.
1 in 5 of the South's children now has the chance of very basic lessons. The reconstruction has started, but it's a very slow process and dependent on foreign aid and expertise.
You hear the click?
The lack of medical facilities means that people sometimes walk for months to get to those few clinics which exist in the south, funded by donor nations. All are aware that while the fighting continues, there's no real hope of solving the underlying problems of food shortages. the United Nations Operation Lifeline has become one of the most expensive airborne relief programs ever mounted. There are now plans for a second similar scheme, directly aimed at helping war victims in the north of Sudan. Until recently, Khartoum was reluctant to admit that such a problem existed. The lives of thousands of children in the south have been saved by feeding centres like these. Here, they're out of danger. They're the lucky ones. Each day they receive a supplementary feed of Unimix, high-protein, vitamin-enriched porridge. Elsewhere in southern Sudan, though, withered crops spell disaster for a subsistence population. Drought, coupled with outbreaks of disease, have reduced the harvest by up to 90% in large agricultural areas. The crop failure has brought reports of re-emerging famine. Aid agencies are unwilling to distribute more grain at the moment. They're waiting for their own statistics. They're only too well aware that aid often feeds as many soldiers as civilians on both sides of the conflict. But where a need can be established, the shipments go on. These supplies are being airlifted from Nairobi in Kenya to the besieged government town of Juba. Little seems to dampen the enthusiasm of Garang's troops.